Of all the various kinds of UFO-related phenomena that have materialized, the so-called light spheres certainly hold a particularly important place. These objects have recently gained greater popularity, thanks in part to the studies conducted by Dr. Elzio Hasselhoff. According to his theory, the light spheres could be the cause behind crop circles, with which they have often been associated. But the spheres began to appear many years ago. During the Second World War, airplane pilots on both sides of the war reported on several occasions that they were flanked by mysterious light spheres during their missions. These spheres could execute maneuvers that would have been impossible for the pilots' airplanes. Their many attempts to outstrip the spheres and avoid pursuit were unsuccessful, and in fact, the spheres often seemed to anticipate the maneuvers of even the most experienced pilots. They appeared in all areas involved in the war, from Europe to the Far East, and it was soon clear that they were not secret enemy weapons. They were given the name Foo Fighters, from a corruption of the French word feu. The objects appeared to be glowing, bright spheres in colors ranging between red, orange, yellow, white, and green. The instruments aboard the planes experienced malfunctioning when these mysterious craft appeared, and once radar technology became operative, the pilots realized that the craft were not detected by their radar devices.
El fenómeno de las esferas se inicia en la Segunda Guerra Mundial.
The phenomenon of flying spheres begins to manifest during the Second World War, during the air attacks among American, English, German, and of course Italian and Japanese air forces.
Cada una de estas fuerzas aéreas tuvo reportes y supo de la presencia.
They all reported the presence of these spheres. Each of them thought they were secret enemies' weapons. And so they were frightened as they moved with great freedom. They could come very close to or move away from airplanes, almost passing between them.
The committees established by both the Allies and the Germans to investigate the phenomenon did not officially reach any serious result. Initially, the pilots and their superiors were bewildered and understandably afraid that the spheres were secret enemy weapons. They later became accustomed to this presence, considering it innocuous. According to the pilot's statements, the objects were filmed on several occasions, but the films have since been kept in secret military archives. Footage filmed by random witnesses began to appear in the 1950s. These films showed the objects both alone and in groups, and what we see in the images confirms the statements made by the military pilots. In this film, we see that the cameraman has located a sphere hovering in the sky and an airplane flying nearby. Amongst the first to suggest that these craft may be extraterrestrial was the Polish-American George Adamski, the first and most famous of the contactees, that is, human beings who come into repeated contact with beings presumed to have come from other worlds. Adamski declared that these flying objects were remote-controlled surveying probes that extraplanetary spaceships had launched into Earth's orbit for study purposes. Their shape could be spherical or disc-like, and their size could vary from just a few centimeters to several meters in diameter. He filmed a number of them in flight. Over the course of the years, further films added to the wealth of footage showing these mysterious craft, giving a sense of continuity to their mysterious presence and origins. This film was recorded in January 1976 over Wiltshire during an experimental Concorde flight. It was filmed by British Airways staff working on another plane. The maneuvers that the white sphere executes are perfect examples of what the military pilots had described during the Second World War. The object flies beside the Concorde, glides along its windows, and then, suddenly, darts upward at top speed. In recent years, these probes have come ever closer to cities, at times flying literally right above the rooftops, sometimes even closer to our streets. Amongst the most significant material in which these probes appear is this video, recorded in the Capo Redondo area of São Paulo, Brazil, on January the 2nd, 1998. This video is all the more interesting because the object was sighted very close to an inhabited area. The object, which measures approximately 20 centimeters, made no noise and was found about 200 meters from the young man who witnessed it, Alan Bruno de Oliveira. A remarkable number of witnesses saw the apparatus undergo transformations. This was made possible by its proximity to the witnesses, as well as the duration of the sighting. Over the course of half an hour, the probe completed several transformations above the houses of Capo Redondo. The movements that the little craft made suggest that a form of intelligence is driving it, halting sharply and suddenly changing direction and speed. It seems to have its own propulsion mechanism. These particular flying objects were also sighted in Mexico. This is one of the first of these fascinating videos. In Mexico City, while a squadron of military helicopters was being filmed during a public show, an apparently metal object unexpectedly passed between the terrestrial craft, to the amazement of the pilots, who later bore witness to the event. This is a solid object. We can see that it stands out clearly against the dark outline of one of the helicopters. It makes a diagonal descending trajectory, and it is most certainly equipped with its own propulsion system, because it flies through the strong vortex of air created by the helicopter's rotary blades without experiencing any disturbance. Moreover, this demonstrates that the object cannot be a sounding balloon, a hot air balloon, or any other kind of gas-filled object. Now, we'll observe one of these light spheres gracefully floating near the slopes of the volcano Popocatépetl, southeast of Mexico City. This document shows another one of these spheres flying at a very low altitude above the Mexican city of Guadalajara. The two videos of this particular type of phenomenon that we're about to show were recorded in Mexico City in 1998, the first just 2 days before the second. In these videos, we see an unidentified flying object in broad daylight, filmed on different days near the same building. In the first video, the object hovers by the side of the building. When the witness zooms in, we can clearly see the remarkable brightness of the rosy color that the sphere emanates. In the second video, recorded 2 days later, we initially see a dark object cross the sky. After a brief stretch, it begins to descend, and we can perceive a change in its brightness. After a slow and indecisive glide, we see it move once again along the side of the same building, shown in the previous video. Then it rises again and slowly moves away. Of the cases of UFO contact that have come to light in recent years, one of the most interesting, from a photographic perspective, is the case involving Raul Dominguez of Mexico. Dominguez has photographed classic flying saucers, as well as small spherical ships like those we've seen in these videos. The objects seem to be made of metal. Dominguez reported that he watched the objects suddenly become transparent when an airplane approached them, only to return to a metallic state when the earthly craft moved away. One of the first films to show the spheres in a group was made in the United States during the 1950s. The phenomenon reappeared in Mexico in the 1990s and in a rather widespread manner. The large number of objects shown in these videos caused quite a stir. This video was recorded in Mexico City on October the 27th, 1992 by Ulysses Trujillo. These formations seem to represent the constellations. In Mexico, they were dubbed flotillas. In this short video, one of the objects increases speed and, flying vertically, passes by a slower object. The presence of light spheres is not limited to the skies over our planet. They have also been sighted in space and filmed during both American and Russian missions. Extraordinary early testimony was provided by the American astronaut James McDivitt. While flying with the Gemini 4 in June 1965, he succeeded in filming a sphere that had approached his ship.
I happened to glance out one time, and there against the black sky was a white object. Geometry of it was sort of like a beer can or a Coke can with a pencil sticking out one of the round edges at about a 45-degree angle.
In this short film, recorded by the astronauts of the Apollo 12, we see a white sphere move quickly above the Moon's surface. While the Apollo 17 was landing on the lunar surface, one of these white spheres was filmed as it moved to the side of the earthly space module. During mission STS-51A of the American shuttle Discovery in November 1984, an apparently metal object entered into the video camera's field of vision, making a quick maneuver to the right and then disappearing again. When watching the scene again, we can see how the light and shadows change as the object moves, in correspondence with the overall light and shadows in the scene. This was not the first occasion in which the video cameras installed on the shuttle detected these objects. During mission STS-37 of April 1991, a nearly identical object was filmed. This time, the object didn't disappear straight away, but rather it swayed in front of the video camera long enough for us to observe its features more closely. In a close-up, we can observe a slight swinging motion as the object hovers in front of the lens. We can also evaluate how its shadow changes as it moves, indicating that the object is three-dimensional. The next video is even more extraordinary. It was recorded in August 1991 by a Japanese colleague who accompanied Russian astronauts Volkov and Krikalev on their mission. Initially, the images show the shuttle bringing supplies to the Mir space station. Then, the video camera catches a glowing object that stands out clearly against the dark space outside. The object seems to move, but this is actually due to the unsteady hand of the person recording the video. Later, the footage moves for a few seconds to the Earth's surface. When the camera returns to the glowing object filmed previously, we see that its distance from the planet has decreased, and it is quickly approaching our atmosphere. It then disappears, definitely into the faint light. The maneuver demonstrates that unidentified flying objects enter into our atmosphere. It was the first time such a clear video showing this kind of event had been recorded. Specialists at the Russian Mission Control Center call these phenomena anomalies, a word that actually makes many significant implications. In this extraordinary footage, we find ourselves inside Moscow's Mission Control Center. We can see the Russian space station projected on the giant screen. The video camera filming it is on the American space shuttle Discovery, and it's filming the moment of separation from the Mir, which holds the astronauts Vladimir Solovyov and Nikolai Budarin. The large map shows the orbital route followed by the space station, which was near the coasts of South America at the time. At one point, the person filming in the control center turns the video camera toward the large screen to film a scene that seems truly unbelievable. We see a glowing, pulsing sphere coming from the lower right, fly sideways along the side of the orbit station, and immediately afterward, another sphere moves downward on the right-hand side of the screen. Then, on the right-hand side again, two further spheres appear, one above and one below, slowly moving across the field of vision. In the top left light panel, we can read the date and time, 18th of November 1995, at about 12:22. Finally, yet another spherical object appears from above, flying not far above the space station. The Russian Space Agency can give no real explanation regarding the nature of these spheres, which, as we've noted, they very concisely call anomalies. The video we're about to see was recorded by an American researcher who prefers to remain anonymous for security reasons. A UFO research enthusiast who has managed to install 4 powerful satellite dishes in the courtyard of his home. He intercepted transmissions made during the shuttle's joint mission with the Mir space station. The images are astonishing. As the shuttle docks and separates from Mir, several pulsating objects can be seen twirling near the earthly shuttles. The maneuvers that many of these objects make suggest that they are vehicles equipped with an autonomous propulsion system, and that they cannot be man-made satellites, meteors, space debris, ice fragments, or anything of the kind. Their sudden acceleration or sharp halting movements seem to demonstrate that these vehicles may be built with technologies unknown to us. This incredible document is from mission STS-84 of the American space shuttle Atlantis. Here we see the entire filmed sequence. We can make out part of the shuttle's hull and Mir in the distance. As the video camera reduces the field of vision, we note a group of objects moving away from the Russian station. As the camera continues to zoom in, 2 further objects appear, making a diagonal trajectory from the lower right to upper left. The larger object comes rather close to Mir. Then, another sphere emerges on the right, following the same trajectory of the previous ones. Immediately afterward, we note a white sphere in the lower right-hand corner of the screen, followed by other, smaller and faster objects. When this first group is about to move off-screen, the shuttle's video camera moves downward, filming another group of objects that have moved toward Mir in the meantime. As we can see, the largest of the 3 objects halts its course and, accelerating slightly, it changes direction, moving more vertically than before. Finally, a new glowing, pulsing sphere arrives from below. As soon as it enters the field of vision, it changes direction and speeds up. Immediately afterward, this craft is followed by a smaller object. and then by a second, which flies out from beneath the space station. We'll now see the most important phases of this extraordinary sequence, enlarged and at different speeds, to show the maneuvers more clearly. Naturally, one would think that if these were flying detritus or meteors, their number, frequency and proximity to Mir would be a constant danger to the life of the astronauts on board and to the integrity of the space station itself, such that it would be advisable to return to Earth. If this didn't happen, it may mean that many of the objects we've just seen are of an entirely different nature. According to the most recent scientific research, there is a direct link between light spheres and crop circles. In addition to statements made by various witnesses, there are videos in which we see these little white spheres floating above the fields where these fascinating designs have appeared. Of all the documents showing these objects, the one that has caused the most sensation is the video in which we can see spheres flying over a wheat field. In just a few seconds, a design looking like a snowflake appears in the field. The video was recorded at 5 o'clock in the morning on August the 11th, 1996 by John Wabley, an English crop circle enthusiast near Oliver Castle in England.
This is amazing.
There has been much controversy regarding the authenticity of this video, but careful analysis conducted by the American investigator Jim Diletoso, an expert in computerized video analysis, found no trace of falsification.
The key thing is that if the Oliver's Castle image was made digitally, that word digital says it went into a computer. In the vertical interval signal of the copy that we have, there is no evidence that it was ever digital format. So point of the story is I find no evidence of a hoax in the Oliver's Castle crop circle formation, and I find enough unique and interesting things to think that it very well could be real and should be studied further.
Other researchers have denied the authenticity of the video, but so far, no one has been able to provide valid evidence to support this argument. Furthermore, the design appearing in the video was real, and it had the features of true crop circles. However, according to the famous English crop circle scholar, engineer Colin Andrews, some doubts have been raised due to the strange behavior of the person responsible for the video.
So I am, unfortunately, as a researcher, not qualified in that field, simply to accept that Jim believes it, and others, it to be technically real, authentic, and yet the groundwork into the individual concerned is highly questionable. Rather than I am so sorry not to be able to totally embrace it.
In any case, while waiting for a definitive verdict, the video gives us a visual idea of what happens in these cases, corresponding to the statements made by numerous reliable witnesses who have seen such a phenomenon take place.
Strange story. People tell about balls of light, whatever they are, flying around in crop circles, flying over the fields, and sometimes even creating crop circles.
Regardless of whether the video is authentic or a fake, one thing is certain: it illustrates what many people have observed throughout the world.
The videos we've seen so far show an astonishing reality unknown to most. These documents have emerged thanks to the investigations conducted by researcher Giorgio Bongiovanni.
I've been able to collect these videos and testimonies thanks to the cooperative relationship I've established with some of the leading ufological researchers and investigators throughout the world.
Io ritengo che il pubblico debba conoscere queste testimonianze e questi filmati.
I believe that the public ought to know about these testimonies and videos because today, after so much skepticism and disbelief, science is beginning to take these phenomena seriously, at least for study purposes.
Amongst the scientifically valid studies on light spheres and their relationship to the crop circle phenomenon, the recent work of Professor Elzio Hasselhoff is quite noteworthy. The professor is currently one of the leading scholars of the crop circle phenomenon. His research has analyzed the possible link between the deformations of the nodes in the wheat plants sampled from the crop circles and an electromagnetic source placed at a certain height above the wheat. The result of these analyses is displayed in this graph. Each vertical bar represents the average length of 20 steles in a specific area within the circle. The perfect symmetry in the graph is astonishing. The same exact correspondence was found in 3 further cross-sections within the circle. This is a highly significant discovery. The length of the nodes is perfectly symmetrical within the crop circle. It's circular in shape. This indicates that whatever mechanism created the crop circle also caused the nodes to lengthen. If this formation had been caused by simply flattening the wheat with an axle, as many think, there would be no reason for the nodes to grow progressively toward the center of the crop circle.
Every single plant has the same amount of sunlight, of water, of temperature, everything. So how does a plant somewhere in the center of the circle know that it is in the center of the circle? If you look at this distribution of thermal expansion of these plants, of the cells, you find that it perfectly matches the heat distribution that would be created by a little heat source, a spherical source of electromagnetic radiation, which would heat up the crop. Don't ask me how. The match is just perfect. And actually you can extract the height of this source from the distribution of this thermal expansion. And in one case the height corresponded to 4 meters and 10 centimeters, while the eyewitness said it was about 3 or 4 meters.
The measurements taken for the average length of the nodes have been discovered to correspond perfectly to theoretical values if the source of the radiation had been at a height of 4.1 meters above the plants. This finding perfectly fits the statements made by witnesses and the images shown in the Oliver Castle video.
And you find quantitative evidence which corresponds perfectly to what these people say. So at that point in time, you can't just ignore what these people say. You should at least pay attention to them.
Professor Hasselhoff has written an article giving details of identical results achieved in other crop circles. In the article, he arrives at the conclusion that the electromagnetic light spheres must be involved with the development of the crop circles. The article was published in Physiologia Plantarum, a scientific journal on plant physiology and biophysics. Thanks to this publication, the idea that the flying light spheres are in some way responsible for the crop circles is no longer just a hypothesis. Thus, what we've seen so far has confirmed that unusual objects are flying in our skies and producing extraordinary phenomena such as crop circles. After the wave of sightings in the 90s, from 2000 onwards, the activity of the mysterious flying spheres has continued. Witnesses with cameras and video cameras have continued to record them. The photographic and filmed evidence on the spheres shows that they can operate in any environment. The documentation from 2000 onwards provides further undeniable evidence. Often, the spheres are seen close to aircraft routes. These photographs taken by the vigilantes Fausto Avaroa and Arturo Robes Gil in Mexico City are an example. Video cameras were also able to record the facts. We can see it in this video by Arturo Robles Gil in Mexico City. In the film, we can clearly see that the flying spheres are not balloons released into the air. In fact, they are not affected at all by the strong turbulence caused by the passing planes.
Del año 2000 al 2008 han pasado 8 años y lo que sí he notado
From 2000 to 2008, already 8 years have passed. I noticed that, as time passes by, I've been filming entities and crafts that not only are amazing,
No solo extraordinarias, sino que nos llevan a una enorme reflexión.
but even lead the whole humanity and myself to deeply reflect and question us. Are we visited? Are any beings coming from the stars visiting us?
The deliberate movement of these spherical flying objects is clear from these extraordinary images. We can see a metallic sphere slow down and almost stop to let a plane that was crossing its route pass by. Once the plane has passed, the sphere once again starts to move in a more jerky way. These continual changes in speed almost seem to be a demonstration for the benefit of Hill's camera. In this other video by Arturo Robles Hill, we can see another example of the incredible technical skill of the spheres. At times, the spheres follow the planes. The dynamics of the film seem to indicate that the people on board don't realize what is happening. The people who study these phenomena don't really know what these spheres are, what they're for, or who made them. But it is obvious that whoever it is, they are increasingly less interested in hiding them.
Estas gentes, sean las que sean, están viniendo.
I think that these beings, whoever they are, show themselves all the time. We often see them.
Eso nos está enseñando.
This is probably because they are teaching us to become accustomed to their presence, not to be afraid.
Al contrario, yo creo que están dejando ver para.
On the contrary, I believe that they show themselves so that soon, perhaps quite soon,
En no mucho tiempo se haga un contacto.
there will be a direct contact and they will be able to show themselves more clearly.
As we can see from the images, at times the objects are bright and luminous, at other times they are metallic and opaque. This is clear evidence of their multiform nature, the manifestation of a technology that is still beyond our understanding. These photos, taken in Mexico, show a group of metallic spheres in flight. They are amongst the clearest pictures ever taken. The author is the engineer Franklin Rojas, and the photos were taken in 2006. The similarity with the spheres photographed by the Hispanic-American contactee Paul Villa in New Mexico in 1966 is extraordinary. Curiously, exactly 40 years have passed between the two series of photos. The movement of this sphere is another clear example of the ease with which they maneuver in flight. It's difficult to say that the object is a balloon. The difference in the movement is obvious. Its flight is controlled and not caused by the wind. When it stops almost completely, it's even more difficult to say that. When it's filmed at the same time as balloons, the difference is even more evident. Salvador Guerrero has been a vigilante for many years, and he is the author of numerous very important films, which are now part of the history of the UFO phenomenon.
Y es una satisfacción.
Why do I enjoy it? Not because I want to be the best, but one of the many people who have proof of the UFO phenomenon,
Que está la expectativa.
who are waiting for the UFO to show themselves. There are people who film birds, who film hurricanes, and people who film UFO, unidentified objects.
Often the spheres appear in formations, sometimes numerous, and it was Salvador Guerrero who filmed this document, 6 spheres in a J shape flying over Mexico City.
When I come across these objects, it is very exciting for me to be able to film them, not only to talk about them, but to be able to record them on video using modern technology.
On June the 24th, 2005, in the town of Jalapa, in the Veracruz region of Mexico, the governor, Don Fidel Herrera Beltran, is about to take part in an official ceremony. Policemen, journalists, and the public are all present. Suddenly, above them, they see the spheres of light. The governor also sees them and shouts, "It's the Martians!" Certainly, amongst the phenomena linked to the spheres, one of the most spectacular is the flotillas. The films by Arturo Robles Gil are undeniable evidence. The formations continue to appear. There are more and more of them, and they are increasingly frequent. The contactees have often said that the flying spheres are remote-controlled survey probes, but also have controls and monitoring equipment for flying saucers.
El fenómeno de las esferas es
The phenomenon of spheres is strictly connected with the unidentified flying objects.
Tenemos videos, incluso en Italia, Antonio Ursi,
In Italy, Antonio Ursi filmed unidentified flying objects,
donde pueden ver esferas
in which we can see spheres alongside these spaceships.
In the film that Ursi took on December the 3rd, 2008, at a certain point, we can clearly see these spheres alongside what is obviously a flying saucer. It's a dark color, which makes us think it must be metallic. It's not the first time that Ursi has recorded this phenomenon. In June 2004, he filmed a sphere near a silvery disc. Ursi has also filmed single flying spheres. This video was taken on May the 24th, 2009. The sphere is flying over the blocks of flats in Cinisello, Balsamo. Just when it goes out of sight, Antonio, his wife Simona, and her little sister run to another window of the flat to be able to observe it a little longer.
Guarda, guarda là. Questo è bello, eh? Hai visto roba?
Ah, l'ho preso.
Ursi follows the sphere until it disappears into the distance.
Faccio il frame la differenza con l'aereo.
The next images of an airplane show the obvious difference between the two vehicles. In July 2009, Ursi was in Argentina for a series of conferences. During a visit to Capilla del Monte, an area where UFOs are often seen, he filmed this sphere with unusual characteristics.
È una palla grandissima, bella. Guarda.
Ah, ce l'ho visto, ce l'ho visto, ce l'ho visto.
Bueno, bueno, bueno.
His wife Simona and other friends are with him. The film becomes even more interesting when the sphere goes behind the bushes. At the end of the video, Ötzi also films the other witnesses.
Mira,
Detrás del árbol.
mira dietro, sì, ma è fantastico.
Sí, está bello. Retrocediendo para acá. La planta iba pasando detrás de la pantalla.
No, è molto linda, È una palla grossa, enorme, Fermi? Los testigos.
Hemos observado también, por ejemplo, cuando hay flotillas, cuando hay...
We also observed that in flotillas with hundreds or thousands of objects, when they are very close one to each other, they move in a swinging way as if connected by a magnetic force.
Hemos observado las esferas.
We've seen these spheres moving forward, thousands of them, all at the same time and following the same direction. We sighted them going into the clouds.
En nubes, dentro de una nube. Las hemos observado, pues realmente incluso, de acuerdo al testimonio de...
According to several witnesses, they've been sighted even inside homes.
Todo ello me hace pensar.
All this makes me think about it as a phenomenon to investigate.
Me parece a mí que no son tripuladas.
It seems to me that these spheres have no pilot on board. I believe they are used sometimes individually, sometimes in groups, to make observations and specific investigations.
The appearance of the EBANIs, which is the Spanish acronym of Unidentified Aerial Biological Entities, the incredible snake-like flying objects, has complicated the incredible phenomenon of flying spheres even further. The first sightings date from the 90s. Since the year 2000, they have continued to appear, giving the scholars a really difficult problem to solve and, above all, to accept. In fact, the phenomenon is completely beyond our recognized parameters for aircraft technology. With the EBANIs, the boundaries between biological nature and technological nature seem to blend.
What is an EBANI? It's an unidentified aerial biological entity, which is to say that it behaves as if it were a living being. These EBANIs move as if they were enormous worms in an organic way. There are some really exceptional films of these objects.
In August 2007, Arturo Robles Hill filmed a spectacular EBANI as it emitted the spheres. As the object moves into the clouds, we can see how high it is, and consequently, just how huge it is. Once again, on November the 17th, 2008, Hill filmed another EBANI emitting spheres. This time, the apparatus is an irregular shape, and it clearly shows the polyhedric and multiform nature of these flying biological entities. These films suggest that the EBANIs are a sort of aircraft carrier that transports the spheres.
Pienso que estos cuerpos enormes de gusanos.
I think that these enormous bodies, like snakes, are the way in which the spheres are transported and moved around.
Es mucho más fácil poder mover a un centenar o...
It's much easier to move hundreds or thousands of spheres in a solid closed body rather than individually.
Entonces,
So, I think that the Abanis are the origin of the phenomenon of the flotillas and of the flying spheres themselves.
Often, the Abanis are accompanied by just one sphere that the researchers call the century.
In several occasions, the Abanis and spheres have been filmed together, and we also observed that in many cases they are accompanied by a great sphere, a royal craft that's always there. I don't know why, but we can see it in many videos.
At other times, they appear together with the flotillas. As we can see in this Mexican film from 2007, we can see the phenomena progressively taking shape in this film by the Mexican Octavio Fernandez. Octavio also filmed these Abanis in various colors. At times, the Abanis, like the spheres, cross the routes of aircraft.
Abro mi toma. Mira, el avión pasó cerca. ¿Te diste cuenta más al frente?
Considering the incredulity and the amazement of the researchers themselves, it is understandable that the public thinks of the Abanis as balloons floating through the air. Everything we've seen about the flying spheres already seems complex and incredible. But in May 2009, the Mexican skywatcher Alfredo Carrillo filmed a phenomenon that has never been seen before. All the objects are dark-colored. The witness is filming against the sun. But there are more surprises to come. The event is also being filmed at the same time by another witness, the Mexican Pedro Hernandez. Initially, Hernandez, just when he's filming an aircraft flying past, sees the same flying object that Carrillo has filmed, but with the sunlight at his back. So the objects are illuminated, and the video gives a better image of the spheres than we've ever seen before. Probably, Hernandez is closer to the phenomenon he is filming. The object starts to slow its spinning motion, and then the incredible scene continues. Slowly, a flotilla begins to form. When the film ends, Hernandez comments on the incredible scene he's just witnessed.
Aquí atrás de mí.
Here behind me there were UFOs moving around, really beautiful. They were yellow, they were really beautiful, and they were here, just behind me.
Comparing the two videos of Carrillo and Hernandez, we can clearly see that it really is the same phenomenon. The statements by witnesses, the investigations, the exceptional images leave little room for theories of fraud, mass hallucinations, or pranks. it is really difficult to think that the spheres are not real or the result of intelligent life.
Las esferas son un fenómeno inteligente, no me cabe la menor duda. Y nosotros hemos acumulado mucho.
The spheres are an intelligent phenomenon, I have no doubt, and we have accumulated lots of film where we can see this intelligent movement. They are part of a project that is even greater than they are. That's why we should believe that we are dealing with a phenomenon that shows the interest towards and the investigation upon us, human beings.
Perhaps one day this reality will be accepted by the authorities, or perhaps it will be the phenomenon itself that forces us to accept it without waiting for human decisions. It wouldn't be the first time. In the past, events have changed human history. Will we be taken by surprise this time too?